This to me is one of the biggest rip-offs in automotive history. Hey everyone, Dale here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Audi A6 Saloon. For those of you that are new here, I work as an automotive consultant here in the UK, but I work with brands around the world and I help them to put specification into their vehicles, the correct specification, and most importantly what that specification is actually worth. So this is an exercise I would do with a manufacturer, albeit it's in a slightly different format today. It's in a YouTube format rather than a PDF or Excel file or however I would do it normally. And what we're going to do is look at the various specs in the A6 lineup, and we're going to decide whether the jump up in specification, if you go from a Sport to an S-Line to a Black Edition, etc, etc, the money that Audi asks you to jump up in specification, whether it's actually worth it. And we're going to be looking at this as if you're going to be purchasing this vehicle in 3 years time, or potentially if you've got it on a PCP and you want to keep the vehicle after a 3-year PCP, whether the specification included is actually worth anything. So there's no point in Audi putting in carpet mats into various specifications if it's actually not worth any money to them or to you. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to record my screen as usual. You're going to see various arrows and numbers on my screen. I'll explain everything as we're going through so that you can understand what we're looking at. And the other thing I'll say is that obviously if you want to jump into an A6 Saloon and you want to spend £41,305, that's obviously something that you need to make the decision for. But we're just going to look at this today in terms of the specification. I'm not going to do a valuation on the Sport model. I'm going to do the specifications higher than the Sport model, just so we're clear on that one. And we'll get started now. I'm going to do some picture-in-picture as I always do. I've got my trusty little pen here that I can write on the screen with, and you can see exactly what I'm doing at the same time. So we will start with the Sport model. I'm not going to value it, but we'll just run through the specification. The Sport model comes with 18-inch alloy wheels, LED front and rear lights, MMI navigation with MMI touch, parking system plus and rear view camera, and high resolution 7-inch colour driver information system. So that's what the base model comes with, and it costs you £41,305 to get into it at the time of filming. Obviously if you can find deals on that, then that's great for you. But we're going to jump down now. The next spec up from the Sport model is the S-Line model. And you can see on the left hand side there I've got an arrow just pointing to the price difference, and then the number on the left is 3660, and that's how much you would pay Audi to jump up from a Sport to an S-Line model. In the centre right there you can see I've got different values down the side of the vehicle. Again, these are 3-year values. So this is if you, obviously as I mentioned before, if you're getting a PCP and you potentially want to keep the car, or maybe you're looking to purchase a vehicle in 3 years time and you want to know how much value it's going to lose, so that you're talking about depreciation and things like that. And then on the far right I've got the total value of what that specification's worth based on the individual numbers there. So in addition to the Sport, it comes with 19-inch twin spoke design alloy wheels, matrix LED headlights with dynamic rear indicators, S-Line interior and exterior styling, front sport seats with leather Alcantara upholstery, privacy glass and sport suspension. As I mentioned in most of my videos about the alloy wheels, we don't add value for alloy wheels, so it doesn't matter if it's a different size or shape. We don't add any value. So basically the way it works is if the base version, or the most basic version of a product, in this case the product is the A6, comes with alloy wheels, then there's no benefit deemed to happen basically if you jump up in specification. So just because they're a different size or they look different, and we don't add any value because they all come with alloy wheels within this specific product. The only way you would add value to an alloy wheel is if the base model came with something like steel wheels, which just definitely wouldn't happen on this this level of product. So because everything in the Audi A6 Saloon range gets alloy wheels as standard, doesn't matter if you jump up to a Black Edition or a Vorsprung or anything like that, the value is always the same. We don't add any value for alloy wheels. Matrix LED headlights and dynamic rear indicators, so that changes the front lights obviously because they're matrix LEDs. It's quite an expensive option as far as I was aware back in the day, but I've added value of £500 there because it does change the exterior visual profile of the car. S-Line interior and exterior styling, I've added another £500 on top of that because it changes obviously the interior and exterior visuals of the car, and S-Line is a very desirable product within the Audi lineup. Now, one thing I will say is obviously you might agree or disagree with the numbers that I'm putting down here, and if you want to obviously pay more for an S-line model because it has the kudos of being an S-line, it has quite a lot of standard specification included within the trim level, then that's entirely your decision. If you want to spend £1,000 because it has a really nice S-line interior and exterior styling, that's your choice. But we have to look at this as if an 18 to 65-year-old, 75, 85-year-old is buying this vehicle, and we have to assign a value based on an entire demographic of people, not just, you know, potentially a 25-year-old who really likes an S-line and is happy to pay an extra £1,000 more than somebody else. Well, you have to work on the law of averages. So that's why I put £500 down for that one. Front sport seats with leather Alcantara upholstery. I put a little bit of extra value in there. Obviously the vehicle needs to come with seats as standard, so just because they're a little bit different and they come with leather Alcantara upholstery, and the base model will obviously come with quite nice upholstery anyway, so I put a tiny bit of value in. Obviously you're thinking 3 years down the line, wear and tear applied and things like that. Privacy glass, so that's at the rear. If I just circle that in red, £150. Obviously, as I've said in my previous videos on other various models, security implications, people looking in the vehicle, obviously it helps with things like that, and keeping your passengers, you know, away from the sunlight and being blinded from the sun if it is a sunny day, which in England is a very rare day. But £150 in 3 years' time I've put for that. And sport suspension, I didn't add any value to that, and it's the same reason as the Audi A7. I think sport suspension should go on a sport model, not on the S-Line model. I think the S-Line needs to have adaptive suspension as standard, and if I was speaking with Audi directly, this is something I would advise them to do. And it would obviously cost them money, but it would be deemed to be a value or a valuation benefit to them, so they might potentially include that in the vehicle. So in total, we've come up with £1,400 worth of additional value in 3 years' time. And that's not too bad based on what they're charging you. So they charge you £3,660, and I've got a valuation here just on the base specification that we can see here, or the basics highlight specification of £1,400. Now obviously I know and you know that there is more specification in this vehicle than is just highlighted here. So they've got 5 or 6 individual items. If I click the little I next to the S-Line, there would obviously be more specification, but because Audi deemed this to be fairly important to put front and center to make you or entice you to click through to that model and potentially order it, that's all I'm going to look at today. Obviously I could click in there and then value every piece of individual specification, but I'm going to do it as if you've just come onto the website and you're just a casual user. So that's why I've come up with £1,400 there just on the spec that I can see. Now we jump down from the S-Line model to the Black Edition. So on the left there you can see Audi will charge you an extra £1,800 on top of the S-Line model to get to the Black Edition. Comes with different alloy wheels, 20 inches, matte titanium look, a black styling pack, black door mirror housing, and flat bottom high multi-function 3-spoke leather steering wheel. So again, reasons outlined below. We don't add any additional value for the alloy wheels, doesn't matter how they look. Black styling pack, obviously we're talking about things like the mirrors there, and then around the window you've got the surrounds that would have been chrome, now they'll be black, things around the back of the vehicle and on the front with the grills and things like that. So I've added additional value. It changes the stance and the profile of the car. I've added a value in 3 years' time of £500. Black door mirror housing, all they've done there is just itemise part of the black styling pack, and I've already circled it with the mirror being black. There's no additional value because I've already included it in the black styling pack. Flat bottomed high multifunction 3-spoke leather steering wheel. I've added a little bit of extra value for that. Obviously if it looks different, it feels different, and it has a different feature set on it, it's going to add additional value to the consumer. So I've added a tiny bit of value there of £150 in 3 years' time. So in total that's £650 worth of value. Not too bad again. We've got a car that you pay an additional £1,800 for, and you get £650 worth of additional specification back just from what we can see on the page here. We jump down again from the Black Edition to the Vorsprung model. Now there's a lot of writing on here because this to me is one of the biggest rip-offs in automotive history. You have to jump up from a Black Edition to the Vorsprung Edition. You have to pay Audi an extra £17,655. I'm obviously not trying to get anybody in trouble here, but that price is absolutely ludicrous. And I mean, I personally wouldn't get the Vorsprung Edition. I'd just spec out a Black Edition and put more options on that vehicle. We'll run through the specification. I'll tell you why I've come to that decision and why it only gets £1,650 and you pay 17,000. So it's a massive difference. But let's run through the specification. You now get 21-inch Audi Sport cast aluminium wheels. Doesn't get any value. Super sport seats. I put a 0 and I put a question mark. I'd have to see the product to be able to understand the differences between the seats and the seat types and the bolstering, whether it actually added any value to the vehicle whatsoever. I mean, this just sounds like a marketing word to me. Super sport seats. You know, the sport seats, you'd have to really tell me what's super about them. So I would ask Audi to send me the product effectively so I could look around it. Panoramic glass sunroof, of course, gets an additional value. Highly desirable option, generally in most vehicles. So I've added an additional value of £500 for that. I think that's a really good option. HD matrix LED headlights, so slightly different LED headlights, I believe, to the models that precede it. Again, I've added an extra £500 because I think it changes the exterior profile and look of the vehicle. Audi beam, I put a question mark against that. I really don't know what that is. I think I did have a look somewhere and I couldn't find what it meant. So if anybody can jump into the comments and tell me what Audi beam is and whether you think it adds any value to it, then please jump in and let me know. Parking assist plus pack. I didn't add any value to this. It's bay or parallel parking effectively. An option some people would use, some people wouldn't. Personally, if I had this piece of standard equipment, I probably wouldn't use it. I like to park a car myself. I didn't add any additional value. Generally things that you can't see we don't add value for. So for safety items we don't add value for. We don't add value for side curtain airbags, even if it's in a higher spec vehicle and things like that. And it's the same with this. We can't physically see it even though the technology exists, and the technology will get better over time, especially in 3 years time. I personally wouldn't add any additional value to it. Whether someone who's not very good at bay or parallel parking would, that's entirely their decision, but from my seat here I wouldn't add any value. Technology pack contains MMI navigation plus Audi virtual cockpit, which I've underlined, and Audi phone box with wireless charging and additional Audi Connect services. I've added £400 worth of value for the technology pack. I'm probably a little bit light in terms of the value on that one. It probably could be a little bit higher, but obviously we're talking about a vehicle in 3 years time, so the technology pack might be bigger, it might have more things in it, the software that's included in it, the speed that the technology pack runs in terms of how it works with the infotainment system and things like that. The Audi virtual cockpit might have changed. So I've added £400 on the basis that could potentially change in the future. City Assist pack containing Audi side assist, pre-sense, rear cross traffic and assist front, and I put in a little line there, lane changing. Again, can't see it, so don't add value to it just because it does side assist and it closes the windows when there's a crash and the sunroof and all that stuff. Doesn't mean anything to us from a valuation perspective, it doesn't get any additional value. Bang & Olufsen premium sound. Obviously Bang & Olufsen, a very reputable audio brand, but we just see this as a nice to have just because these vehicles have £5,000 stereos and radios in them doesn't mean anything to us. It comes with something that sounds pretty decent and it's got a reasonable name behind it, so we'll add some value to it, but at the end of the day we just see it as something that's nice to have and that sounds pretty good and better than most. So we had a tiny bit of value, but we're not going to add things on like thousands of pounds worth of value for just a radio or a stereo or an MP3 player, whatever it happens to be. Now, a little bit of housekeeping with all the words and arrows I've got written down here. The Vorsprung engine, so it's a 4T TDI S-tronic. It's exactly the same as the black edition, so you're not getting any benefit from the engine, so I can't see where the £17,000 come from. It looks like it's not Quattro because Quattro is not written anywhere. You would think that would potentially be somewhere within the vehicle. So I haven't had any value for a Quattro system. It's not described anywhere in this, so it doesn't get any value. So my question really is, why do you pay £17,655 for a vehicle with the same engine and the same drivetrain, and it gets a lot of additional spec, I agree, but it's still a lot of money. I mean, I've looked and I've got it on my screen now, I'm looking at some of the additional spec. There's still not £17,000 worth of specification in this vehicle, or nearly £18,000 worth, and especially at 3 years time there's definitely not going to be that amount of money. So that's why I come up with £1,650. Also, really cheeky of Audi is this. I don't agree with this, and I would advise them to change it. Is the Audi Virtual Cockpit, where I've just got a massive what? Like what? That's mental. You don't get the Audi Virtual Cockpit unless I assume you option it on a lower spec vehicle as part of a technology pack. Or you pick the most expensive Audi A6 in the model lineup. That's mental. I mean, the Audi A1, you know, the cheapest of the Audi product lineup, gets an Audi Virtual Cockpit as standard across the range from the base model up to the highest model. But for this one, you have to pay nearly £65,000 to get Audi Virtual Cockpit. None of the other specifications get Audi Virtual Cockpit. So for me, that would be a bit of a slap on the wrist for Audi, and it would seriously diminish the value of the vehicles lower than this specification because it's not included in it. We don't value options on vehicles, we only value standard equipment. We only value what that vehicle physically comes with on the day, and if people want to add options to it, then you know, we can value it accordingly. But in terms of standard specification, Audi Virtual Cockpit should absolutely be on the base version of this vehicle and work its way up through the model lineup. To ask someone to spend £65,000 to get Audi Virtual Cockpit and all the rest of the trimmings that go with it is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, I'm pretty shocked by that. Same engine, a lot more spec obviously, and it doesn't get Audi Virtual Cockpit. Honestly, just avoid the Vorsprung edition. It's just mental. The pricing's mental. The spec that they've listed here doesn't add a massive amount of value, and you're definitely not going to get your £17,000 back when you come to sell it in 3 years' time. So that's it for this video. Hopefully it's under 20 minutes-ish. I know these videos do go on for quite a long time, but I do like to try and give as much information as I can in that time frame. Hopefully, again, you found it helpful. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.